During this sprint, we have worked on audio add binding to add some capabilities. Before this, audio add binding was able to add a binding between the component we are working on with devfile and the service. We worked on audio add binding to add the possibility to create a binding between a service and any workload on the namespace. So for example, into this namespace I have a Postgres cluster running, and I have a deployment with my application which is not related to a dev file, and I am into a directory without any dev file. And now if I run audio add binding, it will, as usual, ask for the service to bind to. And now, instead of binding directly to the component of the defined by the dev file, it will ask for a workload resource to bind. So I can select the deployment and my node deployment. I can specify the same options as usual. And now, instead of adding the binding to the dev file, because there is no dev file, you can select one or more of these options to create the binding into the cluster, to display it on the screen, and to save it to the file. So I selected all options. The file for creation will be this one. And so that's it. The service binding has been created. And I can see it with the audio list binding that this command has also been created this sprint, and so it enables to read all the binding either into the cluster or into a dev file. And so here this binding is into the cluster. If I go into a directory with a dev file and run audio list binding, there is no binding into this dev file, so it is not seen. If I go into a directory with a binding, here we can see that there is binding defined into the dev file. So that's it for the demo.